Happy Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. We are live here on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show. We are also on your podcast player of choice. Jam and I, we typically come on here on Sundays and we exchange thoughts with one another. We thought we'd break up the monotony, the routine of just any given Sunday. We wanted to bring on a very special guest that we have on the show today. Friend of the program, friend of No Ceilings, and No Ceilings loves us, some James Barlowe as well. James, how we doing, bro?
Man, I'm good, man. I appreciate you guys for having me on this Sunday night.
Yeah, no doubt. Jam, how we feeling, man? First guest between the two of us this year. We're gonna figure some stuff out, but we're all pros here, so we're gonna have a nice little time.
No doubt, man. We got an excellent guest. Couldn't ask for a better first guest, man. So I'm excited.
Me too. All right, so first off, before we dive into the show, James, I want to ask you, it's your big year. Your brother Raph is off doing great things with the Dallas Mavericks. I think last I saw, he's overseas doing some international scouting and whatnot. You've taken over the mantle of the draft junkies this year. How have you been feeling about that in the early going?
All right, so I'm older. I feel like when Chris Webber left the Bullets and Juwan Howard was just the only guy there, and he averaged like 20 and 9, and he got paid. I'm in my Juwan Howard year. So
Okay.
I'm figuring things out. Enjoying it still. It's different not talking to my brother. Talking to myself on the pod is still a learning experience. But I've had a couple guests recently, so I gotta get you guys on my show at some point during the season. But I'm adjusting. I'm enjoying it. It's a fun class, so I really can't complain.
Yeah, you've been doing some great stuff with Latif Love. I'm saying that right?
Yes,
correctly.
Latif.
Yeah, I haven't heard it. I've heard it pronounced on your show. It hasn't carried over and stuck into the recesses of my brain yet, but I watched y'all break down the
Queen Latifah, man.
There you go. Easy way to remember.
Queen. There we go. But yeah, I listened to y'all break down the Feast Week. I listened to all 3 parts of that series, and that was a lot of fun, dude. So you guys have been doing all right this year. But before we dive into, we got 5 prospects that we're going to be diving into today, guys who have been kind of performing well over the course of the week. I want to ask you some higher-arching thoughts. Jam, if you want to jump in here and ask a question or two, we can do that as well. Has the 2026 class lived up to your expectations so far? Any players that you're maybe a little bit more worried about? Players that you think have just kind of exceeded expectations? What are your kind of broad strokes thoughts so far?
I feel like it has met my expectations. If we had more Darren Peterson games, I think it'd be even crazier than what it is now. I mean, he had a pretty good game today. I think he played like 23 minutes and had 19 points. Looks like he's operating at about 60% speed. But just as far as the total class, I think it's been great. And, it's hard to believe that Cooper Flagg was supposed to be in this class. Then we could easily have 4 potential number 1 picks in the same draft class. I can't think of a time where we've had that before. As far as guys that have disappointed me or exceeded my expectations, I want to start with exceeding my expectations. I thought Kingston Flemings was the 2027 draft class guy.
Yep.
It's because of his frame, and he would be the first Houston freshman point guard, or at least the first one under Kelvin Sampson that had the keys to the team. And I was interested to see how that worked. And he has jumped from, I had to move him from one tab when 2027 to 2026 to the 20s to the teens. And now I think he's a top 10 pick. As far as someone who has disappointed me, I wouldn't say that someone just flat out has disappointed me. I've had reservations about some guys as far as where they were projected. But it's always hard to predict. I try not to, but I know I have to because this is a business. But as far as making a mock and a big board before guys have even played is always difficult. So, but nah, it's been great. And then some sophomores have come back to school and have played well. It's not a big international class, but there just is tons of talent, and it'd be interesting to see who's going to go back next year and try to do it like LeBaron Philon and Yaxel Lindenberg. Those guys are doing this year.
For sure. Jam, you got any questions before we dive into the slate that we got so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to kind of hear you talk about and describe your process going into the season. Everybody has their process of breaking down film, aligning those preseason big boards, those dreadful preseason big boards. What is kind of your process when you're going to put together preseason big board and kind of going about your scouts?
So for the preseason big board, I just try to pay attention to like that top 50 class. Then I, access like the AAU film. I lean more towards the AAU film than the high school film because you catch a high school team full of like, I call them family men, guys that look like us who are going to be not playing basketball in the future.
I'm gonna have to use that one. I like that. I'm gonna give you credit.
My props though, but
Yep.
The family men tape is like, I get it, but I try to see what translates, what I think is going to translate from the AAU level to the college level. Also understanding that sometimes guys are just way more athletic than their peers, but it's a big jump. As far as like putting the big board together, I try not to I put my first one out this past week. It's December 7th, December 1st. I put my first top 30 out. And I wanted to give guys some games because everybody's not Alabama. Alabama's playing guys every week. And then meanwhile, you look at Tennessee, they just started playing guys. And that's why I feel like Nate Ament is kind of struggled some. So I try not to lean too much again into the non-conference schedule. I factor it in, but some of these teams aren't playing anybody. And it's Caleb Wilson, you look like Shaq against Wofford, right? Obviously. But I want to see what it looks like against the bigger schools, the better competition. So I'm sure my top 30 looks totally different than there's guys who I've seen in other people's top 30 who I think are 2027 guys just because I don't feel like they've played anybody that haven't been tested. And there's no shame being a 2027 guy. But I just try to factor in those things, lean a lot into synergy, trying to figure out who's finishing at the rim. And then sometimes it comes down to I trust the numbers. I trust the eyes first, and then I go back to the numbers. That's just my personal preference. I think that you can't be too heavy either direction. You can't be too numbers, too much eye test. I try to give it a 60-40 thing. And then sometimes it's just I remember one of the first drafts I covered was 2017 draft, and De'Aaron Fox was not making jumpers, but it's he's taking those jumpers. He's taking all the right shots. And it's I feel guys usually tend to improve as shooters. So if he's taking these shots, is he getting these shots? It's crazy. Jan, you said that I helped convince you about Jeremiah Fears.
Yep.
And I know some of it, he had a stretch of games where it just didn't look good, but now you can see okay, with NBA spacing, he's worked on his jumper at least early on. You can tell that, okay, I get it now. So, but that's just kind of my entire process. And then lastly, sleepers. I'm always looking for sleepers. That's my favorite part of it.
It's the best part about scouting.
The best part, yeah. Yep. So I can watch Boozer, I can watch AJ. I don't even want to talk about AJ scoring whatever he did against Cal Baptist. I just laugh because it was funny. Yeah. But it's the guys that you don't hear about that I'm always looking for. That's really my favorite part of covering the draft.
Well, you're on the right show, dude. So for those who are familiar, we're going to cover some of the big names at the top. We're going to find kind of a more intermediate person that you might be familiar with, but not getting a ton of national coverage right now. And then we're going to get into the sicko session where we're going to talk about a guy who I know is on James's most recent board because, I'm a paid subscriber to the big board. And then also just a guy who I was kind of big on a couple seasons ago, had a disappointing season as a sophomore. Now he's rolling at his new school. But first, let's start at the top, man. Cam Boozer is a player who a lot of people have number one, if not, I think at the absolute worst where I've seen him ranked, what I would call reputable people. I think someone had him 5th on their board.
Is that not a reputable person? Reputable platform?
I would consider it to be one. We can talk offline about that, James. Because I respect the folks that are over there, but by and large, he's typically ranked 3rd at the absolute worst among most other reputable places. But freshman forward out of Duke, listed at 6'9", 250 pounds, 18 years old. This week, he's played against Florida and Michigan State, averaged almost 24 points per game, almost 11 boards, 4 assists, 1.5 steals, a half a block. Shooting splits of 50, 33, and 82. So, James, I'm going to ask you a question about Cam now is that What did you make of the whole conversation? You and I haven't discussed this at all, and we text pretty frequently. What do you think of Cam's the discussion about him and the finishing against high-end schools, and did he do anything to maybe solidify your stance on him over this past week?
So I think this is not a normal draft. Like there are 3 legit number 1 picks, I believe. So you have to peel further past just like he dominated or a box score like against Tennessee when he had like 23 and 20. Like that's amazing. So my issue with not necessarily an issue. I think Cameron Boozer's the top 3 pick. He can go 2, he can go 1. I'm not arguing against 1, 2, or 3. I do think 5th is crazy. I don't know the logic behind that, but everybody has their own. I mean, somebody's probably called me crazy several times. It's okay. But like with Boozer, I do think that it's okay to question whether or not how efficient he's going to be against that top end talent. And like those first few games, if we count the Tennessee game, the Texas game, it looked like he struggled with length, and the guys are only going to get bigger at the next level. I don't think it's a touch issue. I think it's more so an adjustment issue for him because again, he's been bigger than everybody else, stronger than everybody else. Now, while he still does extremely have a strength advantage, there's still an adjustment. So I want to see like going forward, and like I think I tweeted out like that Michigan State game. I thought that was his best game. Now he annihilated Arkansas, but I think those were like smaller guys. Those are power forwards trying to guard him.
We don't have a front court at Arkansas.
Yes, and that's no disrespect, but like Trevon Brazile is probably a G League guy, even though he's still really athletic after blowing out his knee. But that Boozer's going to eat him up. I thought against Florida, there were times where the length got him, and again, I don't expect him to be, and he's not going to make every shot. But against Michigan State, I thought he was great because in the second half, he just didn't have it going, the first half he didn't have it going. The second half, he figured out he scored in a multitude of ways. I think his issue is going to be length, regardless at the next level. Is going to come down to, is he going to be able to, how much is he going to develop like on the block as far as just being more than just having a couple of moves? And if you say Boozer is your number 1, I'm not going to argue because that dude is legit good. He's very polished, and most guys his age only rely on one thing. He can pick and he can pop. He sees the floor well, grabs every rebound. So, but because this is a great draft, and Darren Peterson is going to end up playing. AJ DeBench is great. I'm going to be monitoring his rim efficiency. I believe one of your guys tweeted out against, like, if you took away one of those games that Boozer had against, I forget who it was, he was like 50% or close to 50% at the rim. And like, that's just something you have to monitor, I believe, for the NBA draft.
I agree, man. There's a lot of good discussions, and Jam, I'll throw this over to you because we've talked about Boozer a few times here on the show. We've messaged about him as well within the group. I don't know. And it's funny that, James, you said that you felt better about the Michigan State game than the Florida game. I was kind of inverse. I was more impressed with how he looked in the Florida game compared to the Michigan State game because I felt like he was more assertive and aggressive in the paint. Like, granted, for Duke, he has to kind of be in a lot of places at once. And as strong as this team has been performing, they're undefeated. They got their first, top 10 road victory since like 2019 is what I think they said on the broadcast. They're still figuring out so much of this team, and yet they're still chugging along. And Jam, I'll throw this over to you because Metcalf mentioned this on the night shift last night. He's really like a heliocentric player if you think about it. Like, he's kind of doing like a lot of the initiating, the defending, everything. Like, everything goes through him, and we see how flawed the rest of this team has been so far without him. I just don't know how realistic it is to assess like the context at Duke and say like one for one how that's going to translate over to NBA just like by how he's playing right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And really, for the most part, there aren't going to be too many situations where it's going to be a direct one-for-one translation from the collegiate level to the NBA level. If it was, it'll make scouting a heck of a lot more easier for us, for sure. And I think that him being able to operate as a hub is going to help him long-term to be able to show off his field, the playmaking that he's done in the post. attacking closeouts, things of that nature as well too. And for me, I think once we get more into the season, you have like guys like Isaiah Evans, who's a knockdown shooter. Caleb Foster's been shooting well. If Darren Harris kind of get a little bit more minutes, he's another shooter there as well. So I think they do have adequate shooting around him to give him the space and kind of clean some things up. I think it's really the playmaking piece, them not having outside of Caden, who's a freshman, it's very tough to play point guard, especially at Duke. Him still kind of working his way into that, with them not having an established point guard right now and a playmaker outside of Cam. I think that kind of gets them into some trouble as well, and him having to do a little bit more than what he really should have to. So they're gonna have to find a way to do that. And shout out to Big Pat and his ability to be able to run some offense, to kind of take a little bit of the burden off of him, but it shouldn't be your 4 or 5 man making the majority of the plays playmaking.
Yeah, and then James, I'll throw this over to you, that the context at Duke is so weird because Duke is running a lot of offense through him out of like the low post, the mid post, extended elbow, just like different areas on the court. But he's not really being featured heavily in like high pick and roll sets, which is probably going to be where a good portion of his like shot diet is going to come from, living out of that short roll, maybe trailing in transition, maybe just kind of popping out from these pick and roll sets. Not really getting a lot of that at Duke. So how do you, like as a scout, how are you looking at his current context and like how that could look at the next level?
So I do think that there will be less just flat out post up opportunities for him, not because he can't post up, just because of how the NBA is played. Like you don't necessarily play through a lot of 4s in the NBA except for like Şengün and Giannis. Even like Evan Mobley has had to like stretch the floor because he's playing alongside another 5. I know some people like to compare Cameron Boozer to Paolo Banchero. I don't necessarily think he is going to handle the ball nearly as much. That may be just what I call a complexion comparison and also a collegiate comparison. But in the short roll, I think he's going to be fine. I almost think he'll be better there because while he doesn't have like a lot of explosiveness in traffic, I think he does have really good touch. So he's going to be somebody I think is going to be able to shoot like those little push shots in the paint. And then I obviously think he's going to be able to pop at the next level. That's probably been one of the more impressive things that I've seen from him that I think is going to translate for sure. But like in the short roll, he'll have his opportunities to get a running start and finish, but he just seems like a guy who's going to make that 8-foot little push shot at will, because I do think he really does have good touch. It's just the flat out, like, again, it's college basketball. They throw everybody the ball in the post. Those ISO clear outs, that number may come down some, but he just does so many other things like well. It's interesting to see that the inverted pick and roll for him. I think that's going to be able to translate because he does have the IQ to be able to pass. I thought that was a great play that they ran at the end of the game to get Isaiah Evans the shot. So I like him a lot. It's just this draft is weird. And sometimes I just wonder, is he, because of the draft class, because it's Darren Peterson, because it's AJ DeBanza, and because of how we've been programmed to watch the NBA, is he the guy that you give the ball to at the end of the clock? Because that's what we've been seeing from our top, picks from all these years. Is he that guy? Maybe not every time, but he may be the guy that screens. You know what I'm saying? If he's the guy that screens, he can make that shot. If he's the guy that screens, we know he's going to find that corner 3-point shooter. We know that he's going to be able to hit that shot at the top of the key. So it's just evaluating it differently because he is a big playing in the draft that features 2 like wings that look like they're the guys that you just get a ball to and let them create something at the end of the clock or at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense too. Like I personally have him second on my board. I will say after the Florida game, and I kind of like jokingly said, like, hey, I've had Darren Peterson at the top of my board and he's been missing some games. I'm getting kind of lonely over here, and Cam's over there looking kind of nice. And, maybe I could put him on top of my board now. But I don't think I didn't get there. I didn't like just jump into like my emotional feels watching him dominate against Florida. And I'm glad that I didn't too, because like you mentioned earlier, James, like DP came back, played only 23 minutes, like scored 17 points in the game, was competitive. Like he didn't look like he was in leg preservation mode, I would say. Like he was getting on the floor. He was competing for rebounds, looks pretty solid defensively. I think that this is going to be very competitive at at the top of the class. But Jam, before we close here, I want to ask you, what have you been thinking about his defense? A lot of people have said that he's kind of underrated on that end. I felt like coming into the season, I felt like he was a pretty strong defender, and he hasn't done anything to kind of like deter me. Is he like an anchor? Probably not, but is he going to elevate your defense? I think absolutely.
Yeah, I think he will definitely elevate the defense. He'll be an impactful defender. And I really think with the top three guys in the draft with AJ, Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, all of them have a potential to be plus defenders on the NBA level. And I think that's incredible when you're looking at this class when we have, as James mentioned, is three potential legitimate number one picks in any class. So I think you have two-way guys there. Obviously, when we talk about AJ, some things have to be a little more consistent on the defensive end. But with Cam, yeah, I love what he's done defensively. He can wall up guys in the post. Like, he's done a good job of being active on post entries. He had one against, I believe it was Florida, got out, stole the ball in the post entry, led the break, finished. So he does things like that. And then really, defensive rebound is a huge part of defense. I understand when we talk about defense, it's about like, all right, can you stop this? Can you rotate? Can you block shots, do all that stuff? But you got to end the possession. And he does a hell of a job by doing that, being able to gobble up rebounds in and out of his area. And then I like the way that kind of just sets the foundation and a chain off for the rest of his game. Because once he rebounds, it's that hit ahead assist and getting things out in transition with the outlet. It's him grab and go, pushing it, making plays for him and others too. So I really do like what he does on the defensive end.
I agree with you. All right, so fellas, we'll close the book there on our discussion for Cam Boozer. And now, James, I'm gonna kind of set you up and give you the ball so you can cook here, because I know you're a pretty big fan of our next guy, Mikel Brown Jr., the freshman guard out of Louisville, listed at 6'5", 190 pounds. On draft night, for those who care, he will be 20 years old on draft night. This week he has played against Arkansas and Indiana. This week he's averaged almost 16 points per game, 3 assists, 3 boards, no defensive metrics. James, shooting splits of 33, 12, and 73. Like, not sexy, but I will say when I was getting these stats together, I was kind of surprised that the efficiency was that low. I wasn't expecting like anything extraordinary, but I thought that I think the film looked a lot better than what these shooting splits would indicate. What did you kind of think of Mikel through this week?
I think he's a better shooter. It's going to come down to, at least this season, I have a theory that he is trying to find himself, who he is as a basketball player. I think.
What do you mean by that?
So I don't know if he knows his identity as a basketball player. I know he knows he can pass, but on the offensive end, is he trying to be some of the guys he works out with in the offseason, like Damian Lillard, or is he trying to figure it out? So I say that because he's taking, I want to say 7 or 8 threes a game. 3 of them, I believe, are probably just not good shots. They're the shots that Damian Lillard would be taking, because Damian Lillard is probably the second best shooting point guard we've ever seen. And I think that's what I think that Mikel Brown is trying to do. He's trying to figure out who he is as a player. And like, even the game against Arkansas, right? Like, he was 2 for 13 from 3. And I want to say, I'll erase the last 3, the one that you're trying to just get up shots to cut the lead down at the
Trying
end
to
of the
get
game.
back in, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not talking about those shots. I'm talking about, like, in the first half, I believe he was 2 of 9 from the field. And then started the second half, he gets to the basket 4 times in a row. So it's like, I think he's bailing the defense out right now, trying to figure out who he is. I think he is just settling for threes. If you just clean that up, I think he's a better shooter. Even then, he still needs to like improve as a shooter. But like, some of his biggest knocks, at least not necessarily knocks, biggest concerns that I have for him going into the season would be, how's he going to finish at the rim? Because he was at like 54% playing for Adidas. Well, I believe he's almost at like 60% now, and he's creating dunks for himself in the half court. So I was like, I think that once he's like stops bailing the defense out with some of these just contested deep threes, I think he'll be fine. And maybe we don't get that this year. I hope we get it this year. Louisville gets up a bunch of threes, but I think at the next level, he will figure out that, okay, I can, especially with NBA space, like, I can get to the basket. My handle is really good. I've added this strength. I will dunk on people. getting to the foul line a bunch of times. I just think he's just trying to adjust. And maybe that's me being a big fan of his and like shooting him some bail. But I just look at him and I'm like, why are you taking that shot? Why are you taking that shot? And then 3 plays later, it's like he just dunked on somebody in traffic going left. So it's like, I just think he has to kind of figure it out. And also he should speed that up soon because like Kingston Flemings is coming. And
yes,
LeBaron Philon is already here. And whether, I mean, like, I think if it's an age thing, I don't really care about their age. They're still younger guys, but like him and Philon are essentially the same age. But Kingston Flemings is coming. So it's like, I hope he figures it out sooner than later because I do think he is the best, either him or Abdallah are the best like passers in this draft as far as being able to put the ball on the ground and get downhill and find plays and also just find guys within the offense. But I am buying his talent. I do think he is a top 5 pick, but I just want to see the shooting splits improve. And I think that comes along with just shot selection more so than shooting ability for him.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And James, Jam and I, you can't hold this against us because of the nature of the show. We did a take vault where we said some things that we were afraid to say out loud. We locked it up in the vault. Once we unlock it, then we can kind of talk about it then. One of the things, and Jam, you'll remember this, I said was that I think Mikel might be kind of like overrated as like being hands down the best, like 4th best prospect within this class. Like that was just a concern of mine. The finishing numbers were a bit of concern. I didn't know how he was going to translate with like the more physical aspects of the game. But it's funny because he's like done the inverse of what I thought he was going to be doing coming in, Jam. And I'll turn this over to you where he is in the 81st percentile at the rim. He's getting better at increasing his at rim frequency as well. 5 half court dunks. That's pretty good comparatively to any other guard within this class. And I think that, you know, he applies a lot of pressure on the rim. His free throw rate is at 54.1. It's insane. He has a usage of almost 30. His 32.9 assist percentage is 50th among all players in college with a minutes percentage of at least 60. If you narrow that down to just freshmen, he's 8th among all freshmen over Kingston Flemings and Darius Acuff with the 2.2 assist to turnover ratio. So, Jam, I say all that to say, I think that he's better than what the numbers are indicating. I don't know if like playing next to maybe Ryan Conwell is taking away a little bit of his like almost it kind of gives him like an escape path in almost a negative way for him where he can just give it to Conwell and let Conwell cook, whereas opposed to like, okay, it's all on me. Let me make these adjustments in real time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, do you mean as far this the overall game, how it's affecting them, or just as far as the shooting or playmaking?
I think it's the overall game because I think that he can just give the ball to Conwell, who is probably going to be a draft pick this year. The question is how high. I just think that he can kind of defer over to the senior guard who is like he has no shortage of confidence at all, and no matter what he's doing in a game.
Yeah, I'm fine with the slight deferrals, and honestly, I don't think he's really even deferring. Like, I mean, you are going to play with other good players. You're going to do that at the NBA level, so you have to adjust playing with them. So I'm not concerned about that portion of all. I'm really in the I feel like James just took my scout up, Mikel. Like I'm really in that same camp. Like just to quickly echo and try to add on a little bit. It's just the shooting. I'm not really worried about that. It's a lot of him settling, and then really he's had some really good looks that just hasn't gone in. You know, that happens as well too. And the playmaking stuff, I do think this with Albalis, he's the 2 best playmakers in the class. What Mikel does off the bounce with the live dribble is like really, really special with his vision and his feel, the audacity that he has on the passes as well too. Both hands, I think all of that is there. And for me, like James said, it's just really trying to find that balance. You know, when you are a scorer, when you can create paint touches the way that he's shown he's been able to do with and without a screen, like he's blowing past people with dunks, offhand finishes, really getting to what he wants to. So it's about finding that balance, finding the identity, as James said, because when you can be such a good playmaker and a scorer too, and you are adjusting to all that, on top of the fact that the growth spurt that he's had, the athleticism, the newly found athleticism. So he's really figuring all that out. And I do love for the fact that he's absolutely testing people with that new athleticism. That brings a smile to my face. It is offhand punches on you. Hello, Trayvon Brazil and the rest of the Arkansas team that wants a little. Like, I just love it all. And I think he's going to continuously get better. I will be surprised if the shooting does not pick up. Like, if we are at the end of the year and he's at like 32%, I will be very, very surprised.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna have to continue the volume in order to get that up, but the efficiency is gonna pick up. James, you mentioned something that just like brain splinter in my head that I feel like we just got to talk about, because you mentioned that Kingston Flemings is coming, and Mikel Brown. There's a lot of people already who were Kingston Flemings as PG1, and I think the comparison between the two are interesting because I think if you're looking at the production right now, obviously like the scales tip to Kingston. But I think that if you look at the athleticism, the creativity, the bend, I think that right now Mikel moves more like the type of guard that NBA teams are going to want. I think the upside is a little bit more in his favor as well. But it's just interesting to compare the two because I think Kingston is very effective. He's a good decision maker, but I think that he's behind Mikel in terms of athleticism and creativity.
I think Kingston Fleming's first step is special, for one.
Yeah.
I think his playmaking comes more so from finding cutters and also getting downhill. I think he's just a different kind of passer. What you may favor as a evaluator, coach, GM, fan, I guess it's in the eye of the beholder. But I think that like when he gets downhill is when he finds guys the best. But at the same time, like Mikel, he throws pocket passes every single game, and he fits them into some of the tightest windows. Yeah. And they hit the guy. Like, that's special to me. So I think that's going to translate for sure. But at the same time, like I think Kingston is taking like maybe 3 threes a game, and he's shooting like 56%. That's going to come down tremendously. Whereas Mikel is taking 7 a game. So like the percentages favor Kingston as far as efficiency, but also I don't think that the scout is clearly out on Kingston Flemings yet. That's just my personal opinion. I think teams are going to start to force him left more, and then also maybe gap him more because he's so fast. And I think it's maybe a preference thing, but like there's no side to side dribble for Kingston. It's just you get to the right and I'm gone. Whereas I feel like Mikel has that, and that can be more beneficial as guys get bigger, as teams switch those pick and rolls. But at the same time, you just can't ignore what Kingston Fleming does. He's had that one bad game against like Notre Dame, and he bounced back, and he was amazing. He had 8 steals against Florida State. Like, who does that? Like that's hard to do.
Exactly, Jam. What do you think about the comparison between the two?
Yeah, that's going to be the case all season long, and Kingston Fleming's continual ascent up draft boards and five line, just like that battle for PG1 is going to be very, very interesting. I'm still firmly in the camp with Mikel Brown, but obviously we always have to be in the position to be changing our mind and be open to doing that. But I think Mikel is going to continue to lead that way. And one thing I thought about with Mikel, even if the shooting numbers doesn't quite get to where we want in college, I think it could be a maxi shooting situation to where it's clear that he can shoot the ball. There's a combination of touch and shooting versatility, shot making versatility that you just have to trust. This and the way the jumper looks, it looks good. He's not out there with this awkward form or hitch or anything like that. So I think all of that does have to get taken into account at the end of the season for him in the shooting numbers. And the name of the game is projecting forward. I know we want to evaluate what's going on right now, as we should, but we always have to keep that in mind. We have to project what it looks like in the NBA in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, etc.
Well said. All right, fellas. Well, we'll wrap up there on our guy Mikel Brown. We're hit this break, and on the other side, we got another point guard that we're going to talk about. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break. All right, we are back here on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show, here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel and your podcast player of choice. We're here with draft junkie James Barlowe, and we have broken down Mikel Brown's week. We've talked about Cam Boozer's week, and because I am a homer, we're going to talk about Darius Acuff Jr., Woo Pig, the freshman guard out of Arkansas, 6'3", 190 pounds, will be 19 years old come draft night. This week, fellas, he played against Louisville, the aforementioned Louisville, and Fresno State, where he's averaged almost 18 points per game, 9 assists per game, guys, 5 rebounds, a half a steal, with shooting splits still not great, 43, 33, and 67. But I would say that he's done a lot to improve his stock. James, we'll throw it over to you. What did you think about Darius this week, man?
Well, prior to this week, I was just prior to this season, I was like on the fence about him as a point guard prospect. I thought he pounded the ball too much. I thought he only passed when he needed to pass. So I want to say, like, to me, he's grown tremendously as just a playmaker as far as like finding guys. And it's not just raw assist numbers. Sometimes assist numbers can be fake. You can get an assist passing up an open shot. You know, that's a whole nother conversation. But he's grown tremendously to me as like a playmaker, as somebody who you trust to run the team. I have always been a believer in him being able to shoot the ball, but just the playmaking, I had huge question marks about. And like he's answering those questions for me. To me, it's going to come down, and I still have him even with the improved playmaking ability. And I do think he's going to be able to shoot the ball. I still have him in the 20s because it's a really good draft. I'm really concerned about his rim efficiency right now. And like he got to the rim at will against Louisville, but against Duke, it looked like he struggled to kind of turn the corner. And I have him down for only making 38% of his layup attempts in the half court right now. And I just think he's just an average athlete. So he's going to have to be a knockdown shooter, which I think he has the potential to become. And he's going to have to be able to run the team. But finishing at the rim for me is going to be an issue or something I'm going to continue to monitor. But he's definitely improving. It's just it's a top point guard class. Like I'm probably going to write an article about all the point guards in this class because there's just so many of them.
Yeah, and I wrote about during the offseason, James, one of the 5 offseason findings that I had was that the guards were going to determine the quality of this class just because of the depth of the guards and then the quality of the guards coming into this class themselves. And one of the names that I put in there hasn't necessarily been what I was hoping for so far, but there's still a lot of season. But the point that I was trying to make in there was like, is Braden Burries, and you can substitute that name with Darius Acuff, Christian Anderson, whatever other guard that's been cooking this year. Are they going to be happy with being the 20th pick in this year's draft? What about the 25th, 30th, 35th? Like, do they want to go in that range, or do they want to go back to school, make a couple more mil, and then try their hand at a lottery shot next season for the class that we've talked about this too, James? Like right now it's being built as a weak draft. We'll see. But it's going to be interesting for a guy like Darius and how he favors compared to some of the other names we haven't even mentioned, right, Jam? Like LeBaron Philon, Bennett Sturt, some of these other guards that are in here. Jam, we've talked a little bit about Darius as well. The playmaking, to James's point, has been outstanding. Like I didn't see any of this coming at this level.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the playmaking improvement that he continues to show in the 2-game, 18 assists to 5 turnovers this week. And there was a little bit of that, at IMG. I really thought it was more so that, like, as James said, it was like, all right, I'm going to get in the paint and it's kick out, things like that. But it wasn't like, I'm going to run pick and roll, I'm going to manipulate the ball screen, I'm going to read the tag man and do this. It really wasn't a lot of advanced playmaking. And that's why I want to continue to see from him on a collegiate level. But I love the way he's been able to control the games at times. And I don't think he'll ever will be the type of passer that like Mikel is, or he's probably more of a comparable passer to what Kingston is. That's kind of the playmaking, I guess, gauge that I'm looking for with him. We'll see what type of, if he can reach kind of the tippity top with Mikel and others there. But I do like the continued progression that he is playing at point guard. I'm curious I know James, you talked about it, and Stephen, we talked about it before as well. Just the rim finishing, strong frame. I want to see how he continues to utilize that to be a better rim finisher, the contact balance, and then the touch. I'm having a hard time. I know he's a shot maker, but the touch, because when you get to the rim, if you aren't a great athlete, do you have the floater in your game? Like, do you have the craft around it, the footwork? So these are the things that I still have questions about, and I'm hoping that I'll get a lot more answers as the season goes on.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the finishing numbers, fellas, he's in the 61st percentile in at rim scoring. You talk about the volume or how frequent he gets to the rim. He only ranks in the 14th percentile. Jam, to your point on the runners, right now, our friends over at Synergy have him credited with being in the 74th percentile on his runners. The thing that kind of surprises me, with as effective as he can be at the rim and as agile, as athletic as he is, he has a very low free throw rate. It's only at 24.2. So he's not really leveraging, I don't feel like, the all he can out of his like natural gifts to like really kind of punish a defense right now. And I think that's kind of like one of the bigger things I'd like to see him do is like you use these like pick and rolls, pick and pop sets that he can do with Arkansas, and then try to get downhill and draw more contact. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fares in that point. But James, you talked about the shooting. He didn't really shoot that great this year, but overall he's shooting over 40% on volume too. I mean, he ranks 14th among all freshmen as a shooter. Do you think that, like, where you have him ranked right now, how confident are you that the scoring is where it needs to be? Like, how much more does he need to improve, like, as a scorer in your eyes, to kind of like go up your board?
It's the rim finishing. It's 100% that for me. Like, again, I think he's going to be able to shoot. And even in these games that they've had some tests, like he had his moments against Michigan State, but he was still, it was a good game. Michigan State is tough, and it was on the road against Duke. He had his moments. He's been tested, so he's not just beating up on, what I call the family man. But again, as we get into Big Ten play, like, the scout is going to be 100% out on what you can do, what you like to do. And like, he's kind of relying a lot on Trayvon Brazile to continue to stretch the floor for him. And what happens if that shooting number that he has comes down? So he's going to, like Jam said, a lot more floaters, finishing at the rim. And like, he's athletic, but he's like a below the rim finisher. So you have to be that much more crafty when you're not working with, you're not Kingston Fleming's level athlete or even a Mikel Brown level athlete.
What do you think about his ability to kind of like ingratiate himself with guys like DJ Wagner and Malik Thomas? We can, I guess, put Carter Knox in there, even though Arkansas really used him as like a 3-4. Billy Richmond, another kind of like tweener guard wing forward type guy. What did you think about his ability to kind of play off those guys? Because that was like, honestly, my biggest concern is like, how do him and Malik play off of each other?
I want to give him his prop for that, because I wasn't too excited about that fit, considering how I saw Acuff play in high school and in AAU, and also knowing what Malik Thomas. I think Malik Thomas is a good passer, but he's going to dribble in place a lot.
Yeah.
And but I think that you use the word ingratiate. I guess the way you handle that is to become a playmaker. You don't try to fight guys for shots, and because you can get your shot. And DJ hasn't lived up to his prospect ranking, but he's still a starter. And they also it feels like Arkansas has so many other guys, but I feel like he's handled that well, and that also should translate to the next level, because he's like, okay, you know what, these guys here, I need to be able to find them, get them involved. And it helps him out because now he doesn't have to his usage doesn't have to be extremely high, or he doesn't have to force shots, because he understands that they understand that I'm going to be the one making the plays and feeding them, so I don't have to do everything. And I felt like that's what he was kind of doing at IMG when he did play for the family. But like I said, if I saw him, I'd give him a big dab and say, man, I see you making plays and how you've grown as a playmaker for sure.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest kind of like keys to success for the way that my Arkansas Razorbacks have been playing this year. All right, fellas, we'll wrap it up there on Darius Acuff. And then on the other side of this break, James, you're going to get your first time into the sicko session here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel and podcast feed, and we'll be right back to do that after this break. All right, we are back here live on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. We're also on your podcast player of choice. We are joined by James Barlowe of Draft Junkies and NBA Big Board, where he does a great job on Substack. If you haven't subscribed to that, please go and do that. You'll be smarter for doing so. And so far, we've talked about Cam Boozer. We've talked about Mikel Brown Jr. We've talked about Darius Acuff Jr. And we're going to break into the sicko session. And this guy's probably not going to be a sicko prospect for much longer. As a matter of fact, I know that he's on James's big board already. He's going to be on the next mock draft for No Ceilings NBA over at NoCeilingsNBA.com. That's Amari Allen, the freshman forward out of Alabama, is listed at 6'8", 205 pounds, will be 20 years old on draft night. So far this week, he has played against Clemson and Fresno State, where he's averaged almost 16 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game, a steal and a block. Again, another one of these guys, James, where the shooting splits, I don't think, tell the full story. 41, 20, 71 shooting splits. And that Fresno State is wrong. Who did he play today? It was
I think it was UTSA, I believe.
Yep, UTSA.
Yeah.
That was a copy error on my part. So he played against Clemson, and one of the only kind of like low-end schools that Alabama has played.
They can't play everybody, unfortunately.
They
would try.
They are giving it their best college try. Nate Oates is a madman when it comes to testing his players. But James, Amari Allen, a guy who was on the RSEI Top 100, I believe if you go off of that, he was the third ranked freshman behind Hannah and London Jemison. But my man has been starting every game for him, or not every game. He's played in every game. Most recently, he has started, I think, like 2 or 3 straight. What do you make of Amari Allen so far?
So I want to shout out Amari Allen. He makes me look smart. I came out with my big board, and you know, he shows up and he looks great and he puts on these performances. But he is he's a ball player, man. He's just a hooper. Like I understand lower usage guys. Everybody can't be a star, and sometimes you got to be a star in your role. I've said it on my podcast before, talking to my brother. I don't like 3-and-D guys because when the three's not falling, what do you do? When the defense isn't there, what else do you do? And I understand like the complete logic, the mindset. You want your lower usage guys to, you know, provide value, take those 3-point shots because they're the higher, they're worth more. I get it. But I want my 3-and-D guy to be a basketball player that can do a little bit of everything. And that's why I'm very high on Amari Allen. He guards 4s, he'll guard 5s, he switches on the perimeter. He is a passer. No, not a pass. He's a ball mover, which is good because the ball's not going to stick, and he's knocking down shots. He has great size. He reminds me of like a Royce O'Neal. Like Royce O'Neal is going to keep collecting checks as long as he can make a shot because he does so many things. Like you may have him initiate the offense. He can stand in the corner. He's going to guard 1 through 3 as best as he can. And like those kind of guys, like those are my favorite players, favorite kind of role players. I get the 3-and-D guy, but sometimes it takes a while for those guys to make shots. And I just think Amari Allen is somebody that you, as a team picking this late in the draft, I have him at 29. But like those playoff teams, you need those plug and play guys who can do a little bit of everything. Oklahoma City does not play 3-and-D guys. Everybody that they play can play basketball. They don't just, you know, like even Kaysen is a basketball player. You know, Aaron Wiggins is a basketball player. Dort is a 3-and-D guy, but he averaged like 20 in college. He averaged 17 one year when they were not very good, Oklahoma City, but like he's a basketball player. So I value basketball players, and that's what I think Amari Allen is. And at 29, I think he is definitely in that conversation for being a first-round pick.
I love it. And I also just really enjoyed your breakdown and analysis of like the difference between 3-and-D and basketball player. I think that a lot of people will conflate the two. You know, I think people will look at both of those types of players and say, I mean, you're kind of doing the same thing, but what separates Amari Allen, in my opinion, Jam, and I'll throw this over to you, is that I trust him to make decisions and to even dribble the ball. You know what I mean? Like I trust him to put the ball on the deck, to advance the ball north and south, as opposed to just like keeping the play stringing along the perimeter. Like he will challenge the defense and make them have to kind of congest a little bit and make a business decision. Okay, like am I playing the drive or do I got to worry about the ball getting kicked out to the three? And if you're on the second side when you're already in a recovery state, then a guy like Amari Allen can really thrive in a position like that.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm agreeing with both of you all. Like this, like coming into the season, you talk about London Jemison and Darius Hannah, guys that at least I thought would probably get a little more run before Amari Allen, or just maybe a little bit. They were all played probably that I was thinking going into the season, but Amari Allen probably on the back end. But man, like shame on me the way that he's been playing. And then, coming into the season, this is someone in a high school senior year averaged nearly a triple double, showing that he can play the complete all the phases of the game. So I think for me, that was something that I overlooked. And I certainly won't be doing that again with a player like Amari Allen. And you talk about maybe get into semantics just a little bit, but you talk about like guys 3-and-D role basketball players. I like to label a guy like Amari Allen a 3-and-D plus guy. He can fit you in that 3-and-D role. Plus, he has the ability to do much more, whether it's being a ball mover, connected passer, run second side stuff for you, rebound the ball, hell of a rebounder. I believe he's third or actually leading Alabama in rebounding, actually. Third in scoring as well, third in assists. So his ability to be able to space the floor, to attack closeouts, run pick and roll when you need him to do that, do all like the intangible things, defend multiple positions. It's like, man, like talk about him in the late first. Like, could he be someone that continuously rises and creeps up? Does he challenges for the lottery? You see top 20 positional size, pass, dribble, shoot, skill set. I mean, that's a tough profile to pass up, especially when you're looking for a role player that can be consistently impactful year after year.
I agree. James, I'm going to ask you is the easy part, in my opinion, about if you want to impress scouts, it's to go from like having zero expectation to playing like a moderate level game. Then I feel like, us as like a scouting community, maybe not us here individually, but like in speaking in generality, I feel like the market will kind of overcorrect for your performance. And then we'll just kind of see where things settle. As impressive as Amari has been, like, what do you think the areas for him that you would want to see him improve are?
I do think he does have the tendency to pick up his dribble too much in the paint. He doesn't have like great speed, great first step. So when they chase him off the line, he gets himself into trouble, I think, trying to pivot in the paint. And like I said, I think he's just a good athlete, not a great athlete. He's not going to blow by a bunch of guys. A lot of his drives come off of he's shooting the ball so well from three. So I think that is something that he's going to have to probably adjust, maybe find that corner guy a little bit early. But, like you said, like the scout is out on him now. They know what he is, but because he's not a one-dimensional player, it may not matter. It's just going to come down to, is he going to continue to make shots? Because like we know he's going to rebound. We see he's going to move the ball. Alabama plays at a breakneck pace. They play everybody, anybody, whenever. So it's not like he's going to have any like lapses, and they're going to be there's crazy. They're going to be so ready for SEC play because they've played everybody and they will play everybody. So there's going to be a drop off. There's always some sort of drop off as far as like the shooting. That clip that he's shooting at, maybe that's not sustainable. I want to say he shot the ball well in high school, but not this well. But again, if he's a 35% 3-point shooter with everything else that he does, I still feel like that's worth a top 25 pick in this draft.
Yeah, particularly at his size, right? I mean,
yeah.
Some notable metrics, like if you're a Bart Torvik person, like if you go to the website, you type in his name, he only has one red category, which it surprises me that it's dunks because he's missed 2 of his 7 attempts. That shows up as red, but I don't know if that accounts for the UTSA game where he had 2 just like highlight reel slams. in that competition. He has a 2.8 assist to turnover ratio, which is crazy. That just goes into the basketball player label that, or the 3-and-D plus, whatever kind of label you want to attach to him. He's got a BPM of 8 even against these like tough level of competition, which ranks 16th among all freshmen. 50th percentile at the basket. He's in the 50th percentile on catch and shoot looks. He's in the 92nd percentile in pick and roll set scoring as the ball handler. And then if you look at overall possessions, including assist, he ranks in the 86th percentile. So speaks to the all-encompassing, all overarching game that Amari Allen has had, which I think will help whatever kind of slump that he's in one category. He will just kind of like compensate with the other aspects of his game that he is comfortable doing so in. Let's shift over to the last sleeper that we're going to be talking about, a guy who I loved at Mount St. Mary's. I was excited whenever he transferred up to Georgia. I thought that he would do well. Did not. Transferred over to Dayton. That is Deshane Montgomery, the junior guard at Dayton, listed at 6'4", 190 pounds. Will be 22 years old on this upcoming draft night. This week, he's played against East Tennessee State and Virginia, where he averaged almost 20 points per game, 6 boards, 3 assists, and 2 steals, with shooting splits of 50, 27, and 91. Jam, you talked about how you love looking for sleepers. This guy was a sleeper as a freshman and has just kind of been lingering in the shadows a little bit, has seized a great opportunity at Dayton. And if you look at any analytics, like Deshane Montgomery is all over them.
Yeah, I've seen the name pop up just for this draft class. I'm like, let me check him out. And like, he is another basketball player. Like you're not gonna pigeonhole him into not just a scorer, not just a shooter. Like he moves the ball. I believe he's averaging 3 assists on the season. He rebounds. Those 6'4" guys who are good shooters who rebound, like they usually find a way to stick because they do those other things. And like I think he's a good enough athlete. He had a couple poster dunks against Virginia, where like if you chase him off the line, like you may be in trouble. So like I'm a big fan of his and just that general, like I'm a basketball player. I don't necessarily need to dribble with the ball at the top of the key all day, but I do have enough to create for myself. He looks like just on film, he looks like the tallest 6'4" guy like ever. Because his arms are really long and he kind of like dribbles standing straight up. Like he's got like he stands up when he dribbles. So, but I think he's somebody that definitely has a chance to find it or hear his name drafted, maybe in the second round, just kind of depending on how, the shooting. And then, somebody may say, well, he struggled at Georgia. Dayton is a step back, but he is playing well. And that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, it's all about situation. I mean, look at the different. It's not a transfer down, I would say, but look at what Cameron Carr did at Tennessee compared to what he's doing now at Baylor. It's like night and day.
Let me ask you a question. I know this is
Let's do
off script. Do you think that Nate Ament is going to get a Tennessee waiver if he continues to struggle? And they'll say, you know what? Maybe it's Tennessee because Cameron Carr is playing extremely well.
I'm gonna give this a touch pass. Jam, this is coming your way, brother, because I know that you kind of spoke about the context of Tennessee, and you were like one of the stakeholders in the Nate Ament fan club, I'll say. What do you think about that question?
Yeah, man, I think that's honestly a really good question. I think it will be to a certain extent. So like if he's not shooting the ball like nearly close to what he's capable of doing it, I feel like that has nothing really to do with the context at Tennessee, but a lot of, the other stuff about how he utilized. Like, for example, I would love to see him utilized more as the screener, get him some more times where he can get utilized as the roll man, short roll, do some things there, roll all the way to the rim, and just utilize him a little bit more differently. I love that they do give him a chance to do some movement stuff. Things they've done with Dalton Connect, that's great, but they're two different players. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to and Rick Barnes, I think, is a good coach. So it's kind of frustrating. I wish to, see him be utilized in different ways to kind of really get him going, especially with a lot of the athleticism and physicality, slight concerns that I have for him, and just kind of preferences. Like I've seen Nate so many times in person. It's a guy that's from my area, so I've seen him since like his freshman, sophomore year all the way through now. So I do think there is another level that he can reach. I just hope that once they get the conference play, that things have changed the way that he is utilized and the shooting has picked up. But just that's what I'm really concerned about, is the shooting and then the lack of defensive playmaking. And I think those are kind of independent of the situation. That's what has me a little concerned.
Yeah, I think for myself, like, I would need to see like more, and I hope it doesn't happen. I would need to see like more Nate Aments come through Tennessee, because he did a good job with getting Chaz Lanier coming in from UNF. He did a good job of getting Dalton Connect from Northern Colorado. So he's getting guys who are supposed to be good, and for the most part, they are. I don't know what it is about Nate. Like there's a weird like mental thing that I think that's going on with him right now. I don't think that he's like super athletic either, which really doesn't do him any favors. I wish that, to Jam's point, I wish they would utilize him more creatively than just like in spot up looks, because it looks like they're putting him in a lot of the same things that they did with like Santiago Vescovi when he was there, and not doing enough of like the Josiah Jordan James type stuff whenever he was at Tennessee. So I would like to see him be utilized a little bit bigger so we can see where the mindset is. But I don't know how much is going on like in practice and stuff like that, obviously. But yeah, I gave a lot of the Nate Ament conversation last night, and I don't want to just like continue to beat up on him, especially with my co-host being such a big fan. I have a lot of concerns with like the size and like the increased strength, and like not really making any sort of like headway in his production, if that makes sense, James.
I understand. Yeah. I'm not trying to like derail too much. I don't necessarily
we can do this.
I don't necessarily think it's the added strength, because I feel like the same struggles he had at the prep level, as far as just getting by guys and finishing at the rim, he's gotten stronger. But he still just can't do it. I think
that's why I think it's a mindset thing with him too. He's not
agree
aggressive.
with you, because what was that game he passed up 2 open threes? I think that was the Thanksgiving week. And then this last game,
he did it the last game too. It was the very first possession. He caught it on the right wing
pass. And I'm like, that's a red flag to me, because now you're thinking in basketball, sports, and life, you got to be extremely confident. You got to let that shot go. So, and that was one of his biggest selling points, was being a 6'10" shooter. So hopefully he's able to knock down shots. I think at worst, that's what he's going to be able to do. I always thought he was more Keegan Murray than anybody else, but you got to make shots to be Keegan Murray. And, you know, that's how he was a top 5 pick, because he rebounded, and, you know, he's getting paid a lot of money. But I think regardless of him not being able to make shots at the rim, I think that'll clean up with NBA spacing and also correcting his role, because I don't foresee him being somebody you're going to go run plays for and tell him to put the ball on the ground like they have him doing a lot at Tennessee. But if he's able to be somewhat of a movement shooter, then he can attack a closeout. I do think he has good touch. He just can't get to his spots. It's 2 dribbles sideways into a contested shot for him right now. And I think some of that has to do with how they're using him, which in turn affects his confidence, because like, why are you turning down open shots? But he did he had a couple of dunks late in the game. This last game was yesterday. So hopefully that is a positive sign for, you know, things to come for him in the future.
Yeah. I said yesterday on Night Shift that I think that he's like a big confidence guy. Like once he sees the ball go in, then he like will like try to do more. He's not going to like assert himself in the game, I guess, unless he like feels like it's his kind of turn to do so. And yeah, we could go down this path even more, but I'm gonna turn it over to you, Jam, now for the Deshane Montgomery conversation. And again, I love him, dude. If you look at some of the metrics on him, if you're a Bart Torvik person, not a single red area over on Bart Torvik, BPM of almost 9, true shooting percentage of almost 65, steal percentage of 4.2, assist percentage of 20.1, 1.5 block percentage. He's a good defensive rebounder too. 4 dunks in the half court. Jam, like, he gives me a little bit of like Eric Gaines vibes whenever he was at UAB, but I feel like he's a little bit stronger, a little bit thicker. and that's what I think might give him a look in the NBA.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to him. I think there's a clear role for him to be defensive playmaker and shooter, a guy that can attack closeouts and do things like that. Like, I think it's shaping up for him to be a really good ad on the margins. And the Eric Gaines, I think that's interesting. I thought Gaines more of a point guard than Montgomery. And I think Montgomery does. I don't remember how tall Gaines was, but I think he may have a couple more inches of him. But he certainly.
I think he was listed at like 6'3", 6'4", if I'm not
6'3",
mistaken.
okay.
Like, he was listed big, and yeah, he's a point guard, but I'm just speaking more so on like the athleticism and just like overall playmaking impact on the game, you know?
Got you. Yeah, I like Montgomery. I like the fit at Dayton too. Sometimes for guys like jumping up to, SEC Power 4 just isn't the move. And not to say that he played bad at Georgia, like he only played like 15 minutes a game.
And it's Georgia too.
It is Georgia.
Yeah. The role is different, and you get a chance to come to the A-10, who has a history of producing NBA players and some really good competition there, and he's thriving there. So I'm looking forward to seeing him to grow. He was at Mount St. Mary's, which was about like 2.5 hours away from me as a freshman year. Always wanted to go drive and see him, didn't make that drive, both him being in Dayton in the A-10. That's my territory here too. So I'm looking forward to seeing him hopefully a couple times when he comes my way with Dayton.
I love it. All right. So, James, there's a couple questions in the chat I'm going to call up before we close out of here. Norrin Rad in the chat. And again, just shout out to everybody.
That's
Norrin
my
Rad
guy
in the chat.
Right there. Norrin Rad.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
dude. he and Dirty Dancer are probably the most well-traveled like draft show like audience members in the country. But Norrin Rad says Ament or Malik.
I'm still going with Ament on that one.
Ament or Pete. Ament or Abdallas. Yeah, I think I'm with you on all of them. I'm a little bit close, I think, on like the Ament Malik. But Jam, how about you? Like between those three questions?
Oh, I'm sweeping with Ament, but I think the Pete and Abdallas ones are very, very close. But I think it's like no brainer for me, Ament over Malik.
All right, and then Antoine Willis, a big supporter over here at No Ceilings. As the Hawks, like who do you think could benefit the Hawks the most, James?
So we're assuming that the Hawks are going to have the number 1 or number 2 pick if the ping pong balls, or what, we don't know. But
let's just say big board. If you got your big board of like who's going to fit the Hawks most, like how do you stack them?
And it's not going to Milwaukee for Giannis.
If the Hawks have the Pelicans pick, so we'll just say it's a top 3 pick. All right.
Yeah.
I think I would lean toward. Peterson, great. I think AJ, great. You can take Boozer and just figure it out. There's no wrong answer in that situation. But I think they would likely lean toward the wings because Jalen Johnson is an all-star for sure.
Yes.
And I don't know how you play him and Boozer together. That's a good problem to have. But Jalen Johnson he's legit. I was telling my brother, I was like, I don't care what he did at Duke. I would have taken him top 3. Like, as long as it wasn't illegal.
Exactly.
He was that good.
Yep.
There you go. All right, fellas. Well, we'll close there on the questions and the prospects for the day. James, dude, I just want to thank you, man, for giving us a little bit of your time on a Sunday. For those who don't know, James did sacrifice some hoops to be here with us tonight. So that's how you know that he's got love for No Ceilings.
He's a better man than me.
Yeah, man. I thought about it. Steven asked me. I had to give him a couple of days. I was like, felt good last time I played. Want to keep that momentum, but it's the draft, man. So I'll bounce back. I'll find somebody to play. Like I said, maybe my daughter will come in here and shoot a couple jump shots on my little hoop on the door that I have. So I'll block her shot. Teach her life as it fair, stuff like that. But
you got to do the dad stuff. I get you. But all right, before we let you out of here, man, I want to give you just a moment to kind of like plug your stuff, what you got going on, like things that the folks could be looking forward to.
So I am at Draft Junkie James on Twitter, X, whatever. I am NBA Draft Junkies on YouTube. I am on the NBA Big Board on the Substack. And if you can't remember all that, just find me on Twitter because I tweet all my stuff out. And I'm covering the draft. I got big boards for high school up till like 2028 draft, 2029. Like I'm all in. So yeah, plenty of hoopers to talk about. Plenty of guys who I think that aren't as good. I'm not going to slander any kids right now, but I'm all things NBA draft, NBA, just basketball. If you catch me in Dallas, man, you message me, I go play ball with you. Like I love hooping, so that's just me.
If I ever find my way out that way, dude, I'm gonna hit you up.
Yeah.
And we're gonna try to see each other at some events and stuff too, bro.
Yeah.
But and I just want to say too, man, again, just like the growth that you've had between your rookie season, as you called it, to like
it's year 3.
yeah, to where you're at now, man. It's been phenomenal to see. You were on KOC's pod a few weeks back and tore it up, dude. That was that was really cool. Just like as a friend and like a fellow like draft analyst, it was just cool to see you do some work with KOC, bro.
Man, I'm trying to keep up with you, man. Brent Berry shouting you out on the telecast.
We don't gotta
trying to keep up with no. I tell you all the time, I'm trying to keep up with no ceilings, man. You guys motivate me, man. Got to divide.
It's all friendly competition. It's all friendly. All right, but Jam, let's turn it over to you, brother. What do you got going on, kind of behind the scenes for the team, brother?
Yeah, behind the scenes, I just wrote a recap from a high school event I was at called Mayhem on Military. It's kind of really the past 2 years. It's kind of marked the start of the high school season for the DMV hoops here. Last year, I saw Nate Ament there, Eric Ribe as well there too. So there's a lot of good talent there, both from the girls' game and then from the just the regular boys games as well, including Jordan Smith Jr., guys that we are familiar with. I'm sure that a lot of the guys in the chats are familiar with it well too. So one of the leading guys in the class next year. So a lot of talent there. So I have that recap coming out.
All right, good stuff, man. And then for myself, I had my sleepers of the week drop on Saturday. I had a recap of my time up in Charleston where I watched College of Charleston play against Belmont. And our editor, Nick, is probably going to be mad at me because I still don't know who I'm writing about for Thursday. It's going to probably come down to the wire. So, Nick, if you're listening, I'm sorry and I love you, bro. But that's going to do it for us. Just be sure to, while you're watching, like, share, subscribe, rate, and review. Go over to NoCeilingsNBA.com just to kind of like follow all our work that we're doing. We got our podcast here. We got the Ground Floor podcast with Field of 68, and then the Locked On NBA Draft podcast with No Ceilings. So want to thank everybody for watching, listening, and we love you guys. And as they like to say over at Draft Junkies, we are out. Peace.